All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you spend any time falling down internet rabbit holes, you've definitely seen the wild stories floating around about Mount Kailash. Tucked away in the remote western region of Tibet, it's this stunning, monolithic rock that just rises dramatically out of the desolate Tibetan plateau. It's got this iconic, almost perfectly sculpted pyramid shape that has absolutely captivated millions of people around the world. But, what's actually true here? Today, we're going to break down those sensational viral myths, contrast them with grounded scientific and geographical facts, and explore the profound religious significance that makes this specific peak completely unique in all of human history.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll cover number 1, the viral Kailash myths. Number 2, geography and sacred beliefs. Number 3, debunking supernatural claims. And finally, number 4, why it remains unclimbed.
Section 1, the viral Kailash myths. Let's start with those sensational claims that originally put Mount Kailash at the absolute center of viral internet lore. Get a load of this quote from a 1999 Russian expedition. It perfectly captures that chilling myth you always hear, that time actually moves faster near the mountain. So a guy named Dr. Ernst Moldashev and his team returned from Tibet and made claims that literally shook the world. According to his team, Kailash is basically a giant time machine. The story goes that 4 Siberian climbers got too close to the mountain, aged incredibly rapidly, and then just died of old age within a year and a half. Just let that sink in for a second. A rapid aging process so extreme it just ends your life almost immediately after you get home.
Now, what's truly wild is how these dramatic claims of time dilation have completely hooked millions of people online. You've got people swearing up and down that a climber's nails and hair grow as much in 12 hours as they normally would in 2 whole weeks. Dr. Moldashev even went so far as to say the mountain is artificially constructed. Like, he claimed it's totally hollow on the inside and hides these ancient mythical civilizations perfectly preserved in suspended animation. There are even big internet personalities who claim they spent just a couple hours at Kailash and walked away physically 10 to 15 years younger. No way, right? It sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Moving to Section 2, geography and sacred beliefs. To figure out what's really going on, we have to look at the actual geography and the deep, deep reverence this mountain commands. Because the absolutely crucial point here is that long before the internet, 4 major religions dating back thousands of years independently viewed this one specific mountain as intensely sacred. For Hindus, it's the physical home of Lord Shiva and goddess Parvati. Buddhists revere it as the meditation ground of the deity Chakrasambhara. In Jainism, it's called Ashtapada, which is the exact spot their first Tirthankara achieved moksha, or ultimate liberation. And in the Bon religion, which is Tibet's indigenous pre-Buddhist faith, Kailash is the literal cosmic axis where heaven and earth connect. It's incredibly rare for an ancient indigenous faith to share a single site with 3 global religions, but Kailash brings them all together.
52. That is the length, in kilometers, of the sacred parikrama. It's this grueling circumambulation path that pilgrims walk. Hindus and Buddhists trek this 52-kilometer path clockwise, while Jains and Bon followers go anti-clockwise. Imagine doing that, 52 kilometers of jagged rocks and steep inclines. And you're doing this at an immense altitude where every single breath just burns your lungs and the wind is freezing. Yet, millions of people have accomplished this staggering human achievement over millennia, completely fueled by pure devotion.
And right nearby, you find this stunning natural contrast. Picture this. Just a few kilometers apart, you have these 2 massive lakes. Mansarovar is considered the bathing place of gods. It's full of life, it's sweet fresh water, totally drinkable. But right next to it is Rakshas Tal, which is seen as the realm of demons. It is highly saline, completely dead, and undrinkable. For centuries, travelers have looked at this and thought, how is it possible that 2 lakes sitting right next to each other in the exact same harsh environment can be complete opposites? Well, science actually has a brilliant answer for Rakshas Tal's deadliness. It's an endorheic lake. That means it's totally landlocked with 0 outflow, so water can only escape by evaporating into the air. When that happens, all the heavy salts and minerals get left behind. Plus, there's a slight altitude difference between the 2 lakes. Fresh water from Mansarovar constantly overflows right into Rakshas Tal, dumping even more minerals into it. Over centuries, those minerals just concentrate and concentrate, making Rakshas Tal incredibly salty and lifeless, while Mansarovar stays totally fresh. It's not some magical curse, it's just really cool geology in action.
All right, Section 3, debunking supernatural claims. Let's see what happens when we put these viral internet mysteries up against methodical science and real data.
You know, you'll constantly hear this myth that Kailash is exactly 666 kilometers from the North Pole and from Stonehenge. It's supposed to prove it's this mathematically perfect, engineered anomaly. But when you check the actual measurements, they aren't even close. The North Pole is 650 kilometers away. Stonehenge, that's a massive 6,900 kilometers away. People are literally just forcing these spooky 666 numbers into the story to make it sound mysterious, but the raw data completely debunks it.
We can also totally rule out the time machine stuff. Because according to Einstein's theory of relativity, if you want time to actually slow down or speed up, you need extreme speed or mind-bending gravity, like black hole levels of gravity. Kailash is just rock and ice. There is no extreme gravity there. Unless there's a black hole tucked behind a glacier that nobody noticed, time operates exactly the same on that mountain as it does right now in your living room.
And actually, when we trace these time travel myths back to their main source, that Dr. Moldeshev guy from earlier, his credibility just evaporates. Get this, he wasn't a physicist, he wasn't a geologist, he was literally an eye surgeon. Would you trust a geological report from an eye surgeon? Especially one who actively claims he found Dracula's underground castle? Seriously. He also believes in mermaids and telepathic superhumans. And those 4 Siberian climbers who supposedly rapidly aged to death, the Russian Mountaineering Federation confirmed that expedition never even happened. 0 names, 0 dates, no death certificates. The whole thing was just a fictional story in a Russian tabloid.
So what about the mysterious headaches and disorientation that people actually do report up there? Well, it's not a supernatural force field scrambling your brain. It's just acute altitude sickness. When you climb above 4,000 meters, oxygen drops off a cliff. That causes hypoxia, which leads to literal swelling in the brain, brutal headaches, confusion, and even vivid hallucinations. It's a very real, potentially deadly biological response, not magic.
And that perfect pyramid shape? Again, 100% natural. During the Ice Ages, roughly 2.5 million years ago, these massive glaciers dragged across the rocks. Over millions of years, that unyielding ice acted like giant sandpaper, grinding down the edges of the mountain into these sheer faces pointing north, south, east, and west. It's a breathtaking, deep-time geological process, sure, but it's exactly how the Matterhorn in the Swiss Alps was formed too. No ancient aliens required.
Which brings us to Section 4, why it remains unclimbed. If it's not a time machine and there's no invisible force field, what is actually stopping us from standing on the summit?
Well, let's look at the height. At 6,638 meters, Mount Kailash is actually about 2,200 meters shorter than Mount Everest. To put that into perspective, there are over 100 taller mountains out there that humans have successfully conquered. Yes, the near 90-degree rock faces are incredibly dangerous, but physically, in the elite climbing world, conquering Kailash is entirely possible. And historically, people certainly tried. Back in 1926, British explorers gave it a shot but were turned back by severe weather. But the real game changer happened in 1985. Reinhold Messner, arguably the greatest mountaineer in history, the first guy to climb all 14 8,000-meter peaks, was actually offered a permit by China to climb Kailash. If anyone could do it, it was him. But he said no. Later, in 2001, a Spanish team got a permit, but it sparked such a massive global uproar that the trip was canceled, and China completely and permanently banned all climbing on the mountain.
The climbing community basically had a collective realization. When Messner was considering the climb, a peer warned him that summiting Kailash would be like conquering the very souls of millions of people. And he totally agreed. The British Alpine Club backed this up too, realizing that climbing it would irreversibly destroy something held deeply, profoundly sacred. As the quote goes, one should not trample in mountain boots on gods turned to stone.
So at the end of the day, Mount Kailash's greatest miracle isn't time travel or some hollow alien base. It's the simple fact that humanity chose respect over conquest. Think about it. We've conquered the bottom of the ocean. We've walked on the moon. We have stood on top of virtually every other peak on this planet. But when faced with Kailash, the most fiercely competitive explorers in the world stopped, looked up, and said, let's leave this one alone. So, in a world that is completely obsessed with conquering everything we touch, isn't our collective choice to leave Mount Kailash beautifully untouched the most extraordinary miracle of all?